AI is going to create a leverage playing field of knowledge. Because of technology, will disrupt real estate in ways that we cannot foresee. Now, I'll tell you what the world's going to look for 5 years from now.
Meet Danny Kattan. He owns over $300 million in real estate across large single-family portfolios, multifamily properties, lending, and even a property tech company creating a new real estate class. In this episode, we dive into his profit-boosting strategies and investment secrets. Let's get started.
And to this day, I'm still convinced that investors in real estate are making a huge mistake. Huge. Which is they want outsized returns from real estate. And they end up taking stupid risk. So every technology that it's out there, somehow it's going to affect real estate, even residential real estate. We might have robots constructing buildings, right? And so it will be cheaper. But at the end, the only thing that we do is we need a place to live. So the other day they asked me a reason, like, how did you get into real estate? And the answer to that was failure. We were told that we were idiots. Right? Because we were buying single family houses when nobody was buying. God puts us in front of situations for a reason. And sometimes how many times we had in front of us the person that we need to solve our problems or to create a business, but we failed to talk to them. And so I do believe that luck follows the prepared, because you're put in certain situations where you go like, oh my God, this changed my life. Again, opportunities are created because people are scared. And so the Warren Buffett thing where, when there's blood in the streets,
Danny Kattan has created his own asset class in real estate, which you're going to hear about. So you're going to hear a lot of things, what it takes to really succeed in real estate, succeed as an entrepreneur, and everything else. I'm just going to start off, Danny, with a quick little lightning round, right? Because people will be like, what do you say? So let's hear interest rates. We got a new administration. We got Elon Musk. We got Doge, all that good stuff. So where do you think interest rates will be 12, 24, 36 months from now?
About the same. I think that if you look at historical interest rates, we're about the same. This whole bullshit of interest rates at 2% and 3% should have never happened. The government was too quick to come down and too late to go up.
Typical.
But look at historicals, right? Listen, in the great financial crisis when we started buying houses, rates were at 6 and at 7. Somehow people think that rates are important to make deals work. No, deals are important to make deals work. Interest rates are cool. It will help you. But I think that if you look at historicals and to the fact that we have $30 trillion in, deficit and, an economy that is dysfunctional at best, I'll be very surprised if the 10-year goes consistently below 4. Now, let's say that it goes and settles between 3.5 to 4. Mm-hmm. The problem with interest rates is not where the interest rate is, it's the volatility. Because if you think about it, you're going to buy something today, you put it under contract, you're going to close in 60 days, you don't know whether it's going to be 4.5 or 5. So what do you underwrite to, right?
Got it. No, so you made a comment in there, right? It's not the interest rates. The deal is the deal. Yes. So what do you mean by that? So interest rates are not a factor when you're out there buying your multifamily portfolios and so on?
Obviously, it's a factor, but it's a factor that basically affects everybody. Okay, so if everybody has the same interest rates at the end, how do you get a deal? It's because you can make it work better for you. You're a better operator. You understand the market better, so forth and so on.
Okay.
Right. And let me put it this way. Let me put it the inverse. So if interest rates are very low, implicitly, what does it mean? We have a recession. For interest rates to be very low,
stimulate the economy, right?
We have a recession. So now you have people afraid in the sidelines because there's a recession. Oh, we're not going to buy anything because there's a recession, right? And so you have less competition. At the end, I think that the deals are made when a lot of people are out of the sidelines. Like I have I'm passionate when I argue, right? So the other day somebody said to me, "Oh, you're lucky because you bought at the right time the single family houses," and we'll get there later. And I said, "Lucky, f you," right? We were told that we were idiots, right? Because we were buying single family houses when nobody was buying. Like, who were we trying to like buy family houses, single family houses at $40,000-$50,000? We went to people, Jerry. Like a guy, like I knew this guy like at least $50 to $100 million. Okay, mostly liquid. And I went to him, listen, buy one. We're buying it for $60,000. We're fixing it for 25. You pay me $15,000 to do everything, open book. The house is yours. We're not sharing anything. We're not 50-50. It's yours. It's 100%. You rent it to the U.S. government, Section 8, at a 12% cap rate. And the guy goes, "Oh, I don't know. The issue with real estate is liquidity, and maybe it will, it will come down again." I'm like, first of all, if it comes down again, the U.S. will be bankrupt because, that's when Citibank was trading at $1, basically surviving. And if it will double dip, it will, if a house goes from 50K in Miami Gardens to like 25, it would have meant that the Opalaka houses, you have to pay them to give them away. Because at that time, the Opalaka houses were like 5,000, 10,000, right?
You're referring to an investor raising money?
I'm referring to an investor that I went in 2009 to sell him a property. It's like, hey, I'm going to sell you a house that we're buying for 60, we're putting 25, we're charging 15, you're all in for 90K. And the U.S. government's going to pay you $1,500 worth of rent or $1,400 worth of rent.
Gotcha.
Section 8. So that was a 12% cap rate, give or take. And my point is people were shit scared in 2008, 9, 10, 11, even though they had money. And yes, to finish the story, and the other argument that you make about liquidity in real estate, and I pulled my wallet off, and at the time I was like half broke. And I said, listen, if you have liquidity problems, just tell me, I can help you, right?
Okay.
The guy has $50 million in the bank. Again, opportunities are created because people are scared. And so the Warren Buffett thing where, when there's blood in the streets,
right. Philosophy.
Go out, right?
Time of maximum pessimism is the time to buy.
Yes. And I think that it's that maximum pessimism is when people are pessimist and you really understand the fundamental underlying machinery of the asset class. So what we knew back then is what we knew now. People need a place to live, right? I mean, it cost money to build something, right? Miami was not going to go anywhere. This was not Detroit, right?
Got it.
And so my point is,
back then
is interest rates are irrelevant when there's an opportunity to buy things that way below replacement cost or where an investment thesis that can generate, good returns. I think that the moment is now because interest rates are high.
I want to take a quick break to ask, did you enjoy the video so far? If you want to learn how real estate titans make millions, hit that subscribe button now. Join us on Real Estate Profit Boost with Jerry Katz at Jerry Katz CEO for expert tips and insider strategies to grow your wealth.
Interest rates are not high. So what you're saying is if you buy below replacement cost, you can never replace that asset. But that leads me to a question. Regardless if you're buying below replacement cost, if the rent or the income, right, doesn't meet your debt service coverages, your expenses and everything, then it doesn't really matter the replacement cost value, does it? If the rent's not high enough.
It doesn't. Right. And let me put it
money.
Let me put it the easy way so people can understand, right? You're buying a multifamily next to a factory, and the factory shuts down, and there's no other employment around the area.
Okay.
That's an empty building, period. Right? Right now, you can buy office in Manhattan for 25% of what it costs to build.
Because there's no demand for office.
There's no demand for office.
Correct.
Right? And so the advantage of residential is that, first of all, it is elastic, which means that, if you tell an individual, it's like, listen, I will, if I reduce the rent by half, will you get a bigger house? Yes. If I tell you, Jerry, if I reduce the rent in your office by half, will you get a bigger office? Probably not.
Got it.
Okay.
Right.
Second of all, I think that a lot of the demand that we saw in the 21, 22 is what I call people coming out of the basement. Right? It's like suddenly, you know what, I have all this money. Mom, I'm no longer want to live with you. Right? I'm leaving my basement or leaving my room, and I'm gonna go get my own condo. And now they're back. Because it just went like that and like that, right? So, it doesn't make any sense because you have all these people migrating to the Southeast, and suddenly you have all this supply, and then the rents went down. But what happened with the other people that were renting? So I think there's a lot of people pulled back when they didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. And, basically, from getting a place of their own, they roommate and went back and so forth and so on. So what I love about real estate, residential real estate, and you heard me say this thing before, it's that, in our words of our famous friend Goran, it's easy. And it's easy for one simple reason, because it's a primary need, Jerry. I mean, I grew up in Colombia, and when I grew up, the world was different, right? I mean, we saw famine in the world, and people die, and out of hunger and so forth and so on. So back then, maybe 50 years ago, it would have been fair to say that food was the number one priority for people.
Got it.
Okay.
Today it's housing. Understood.
Today's shelter. Because food, think about this. You see somebody to the bone in the street, and they ask you for $1, you give them 10. Right? But if you have a house with 50 rooms, and guy comes to you and says, Jerry, you know what? I'm homeless and I don't have a place to live. Can I use one of your 50 rooms? I'm like, no, you're not coming to my house.
Right. Okay. Sad, but true. Right.
I hope when you have 50 rooms, you invite me to your house. That's a different story. But I think shelter is important for several reasons. One, it allows you to create what I believe is the most important thing for humanity, and it's the family nucleus.
Got it.
Humanity does not exist if we don't preserve the family nucleus. This whole concept that family is not important, that there's no God and so forth and so on, can easily destroy humanity. And if you think about it, our home is where humanity starts.
Right.
Okay.
The family.
The second part, it protects you from criminals, and it gives you shelter from the elements.
Hurricanes.
So what we saw, if you think about it, in 2008, the shit show that was the great financial crisis, we didn't have EIDL, we didn't have the checks, whatever. We zero. The government left everybody to their own devices. There was nothing. Mm-hmm. Yet people figure out a way to pay rent.
Of course.
And how did they did it? Families bunched up, and people started creating jobs, and suddenly they're like, there's no jobs for me. You know what? Let me go drive a car. Uber was created. Let me rent my bedroom. Airbnb was created. There was the gig economy was basically created during 2008, 9, 10, which basically says the following. If the government gives you money, you're not going to work. If the government doesn't give you money, you're going to be creative. You're going to figure something else. The society will be much better. And I'm not arguing for the government. Don't give the money to the needy people.
Right.
But you don't have to give them enough money to go to Gucci and buy shoes.
Right. No, you know how much money we got in the EIDL and the
I got
ERC
zero, and
credits?
I'm an entrepreneur.
You got zero. You're an entrepreneur. Well, we got credits because we didn't fire anybody, the ERC credits, but we did. I got $150,000 EIDL loan and actually bought an agency and so on. So let me take you back to what you said back before, right? Because what I heard is you were in single family. Why? Because first of all, you mentioned things like population trends, right? And the migration to Florida and so on. So you were buying your first asset class.
Let me
single
stop
family.
You. Let me stop you a little bit. I mean, I went to single family, and the other day they asked me a reason, like, how did you get into real estate? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that was failure. And I walk you, right? So after I graduated my MBA, I went to Colombia, where I worked there as an investment banker for 5 years. I was privatizing railroads and roads and power plants and stuff like that. And then 1999, the dot-com boom. I had this brilliant idea of creating digital trading cards. And so I came here and started the company. And you're thinking that Panini was going to be a buyer for it. And, Panini said, no, it's not going to work. But Disney and Fox and National Hockey League, and so you have a company you're thinking you're doing great, and then goes down.
No, I know.
And then
lost everything I own in the .com bubble on Wall Street. Everything.
Right. And
10
then,
years of work.
And then got into telecom, voice over IP, and it's kind of you're struggling there, trying to create companies, and eventually you start to see all these people go to a condo sales office, get a condo, something on the contract, and then get out and sell it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting thinking, you know what? This is a bubble. It's a bubble. It's a bubble. It's a bubble. My friends thought that, I was like the most negative guy in the world. And why was I negative? Because, I was struggling as an entrepreneur. Like, sometimes I had to sell my miles to go, pay for my mortgage. Right?
Sounds like you were going for home runs, not base hits.
Yes and no. I don't think that it was the home run or the base hits, right? It's like it's the entrepreneurial journey.
Got it.
Right? Sometimes we have to, the road will take you there, but you don't know where the road is. You don't know what the road is, but it will take you there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that luck follows the prepared, because you're put in certain situations where you go like, oh my God, this changed my life. And what changed my life was drinking, because I was at a party.
Okay.
And I was having a drink with a guy.
Right.
And I'm telling him my version of like the world's gonna be a bubble, and all this thing is paper money, and he goes, it's like, oh, it looks like it's gonna be the same as the savings and loan crisis, where people bought loans for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
I don't care how drunk you are, but if you tell an entrepreneur that you can buy things for pennies on the dollar, you become very sober very quick. You're like, tell me more.
Well, you mentioned the word luck. What's the definition of luck for Danny Kattan?
We make our own luck, Jerry.
Correct.
We make our own luck.
Not everybody.
Well, but
when they hear an opportunity. So are you lucky, or were you prepared?
In order to be lucky, you have to be prepared.
In
order to win the lottery, you have to buy the ticket.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a 10-second example. I'm in the car with my son yesterday, right? And I'm driving over here on Broward and Federal, and he says, Dad, look, there's a vacancy in that little retail plaza on the corner. I go, yeah. He goes, we should open a pizza place. I said, why? And he's 19, right? He goes, Dad, it's in the center of Broward and Federal. There's at least 55,000 cars coming here. There's no pizza. And look how many people in the office buildings and apartments. And I look at him, I go, very nice, Mr. Max. But here's the thing. So let's say we executed and we opened that pizza place, right? Was my son lucky? No. I don't think so. He's been listening to me for 15 years, right? So, but other people, if we have a successful pizza place, will say what? Oh, Max Katz is very lucky? I don't think so. I think he was ready, prepared, and when the opportunity crossed him, just as you did when you were drinking at the party, you jumped on it. So,
well, it wasn't an opportunity. It was a state of mind. It's like, because I didn't know anything about real estate. I had zero, right? Somebody told me, hey, there was a dislocation in the past that's where people made all their money.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I said, you know what? And he told me one thing that actually, that's what really changed it. It says, you know what? People made a lot of money buying paper, not the brick. Okay. And so that's when I went to work for Countrywide. Because I am an engineer by training, master's in finance, but that's different. But I like to understand how the sausage is made. Like if I had a factory, I probably couldn't run it because I'll be all day just toying with the freaking machines, right?
Got it.
So how the sausage was made back then is how do mortgages get originated. So I went to work for Countrywide, in Coral Gables as a mortgage broker, like in the pit.
No, I get it.
3 weeks later, after I start, like my boss, Ray Duran, if you're hearing this, thank you, calls me and looks at me, is like, are you a corporate, are you a corporate spy? Are you writing a book? It's like, no. It's like, why? Why will a guy with a Wharton MBA be here, like with a bunch of people originating mortgages? You can be my boss's boss's boss. And that's when I told Ray, I think that when this thing implodes, I want to learn how the sausage was made so I can go buy the sausages.
Right. So
And he goes,
when
"Oh, it's never gonna happen." Long story short, and talk about sometimes feeling weird, right? Like you're prepared, you're honest, you're in front of people, you do the right thing, you work every day. And there was this lady next to me who she had a line of people to do mortgages. Lines. People were waiting for her. In the meantime, I'm dialing for dollars trying to get money, right?
Mhm.
Well, she was doing straw loans, right? And eventually I was there when the FBI came to look for her. So, to the people who are in Miami and listening to this, half of the people that you're looking around probably don't have a real job, So it's one of those things. And in 2008, when I went to buy the loans were overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
After talking to a bunch of banks, I figured that they had an issue selling houses, and that's when I partnered with my cousin Jimmy Levy, who had a franchise of We Buy Ugly Houses, start buying one by one. But my
Buying
point is, it
houses.
doesn't start like one day I woke up and, let's go buy houses. I had the preparation, I prepared for it, wax on, wax off,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Which,
You
by
learned
the
how
way,
the sausage was built, and then when the opportunity
yeah.
presented itself, you were ready. And I didn't know that you had a franchise of We Buying Houses,
No,
Ugly
I did.
Houses.
I didn't know my partner, Jimmy. Jimmy had a
Okay.
franchise of We Buy Ugly House. We buy two franchises.
Right. So
So
it was
he's the guy
almost,
who knew real estate. I didn't know shit.
but it was almost accidental at that time, right? You didn't pick single family residence as an asset class because you
No, I did
reverse
pick single family.
engineer.
I did
It,
pick. I did pick single families because back then, what I knew the greatest dislocation was going to be in single families.
okay, because the time of maximum distress or the lowest
Because when you're
values.
given when you're given no income, no asset loans, smile, fog the mirror,
Yeah.
right? And I'll give you 105.
Is there something like that bubble right now?
Yes.
And what is it, according to Danny Kattan? And that's what I'm talking about. Listen to that value. Listen to those strategies. Listen to those secrets. Now, if you like what you hear right now, I need you to like, I need you to subscribe, and I need you to share with a friend. That's right, who wants to scale in real estate. And even more importantly, maybe you heard something that we didn't. So put a comment below and share your insights on this video, because you know what? That's what this channel is about. Learning and growing from each other, and you may see something that we don't. So this is Real Estate Profit Boost, where people learn how to scale in the world of commercial real estate.
I think that there's a lot of products coming out of Wall Street that are similar in nature, and one of them is home equity investment or home equity appreciation loans, where they're telling people,
Home
what
equity appreciation loans. Elaborate on that, because I'm not familiar.
it's called HEI. It's basically companies that are trying to basically say, you know what, you have equity in your house, right? You have a house that is worth $300,000. You owe 100, right? You cannot qualify for a loan. No, we'll give you money in exchange of having equity in your home. And they'll give you like 100K and they'll buy 50% of your home. Right.
Got
And
it.
so
But
that's a
not
lot
a
of
HELOC. It's not a equity
it's
line.
it's not characterized as a loan.
It's not. So it's not a security, a loan. It's not regulated.
Nope.
And it's starting to. And how do you know about this? Are you competing with this in your other
I'm
new
not
business?
competing. No,
With the sell to rent? No.
the sell to rent, no, I'm not. It's an alternative, because I mean, how do I know about? I mean, this has been going for years. This is nothing new. This is that
Okay.
we are starting to hear where people, just they're pushing this product, right? Like sign here, you'll sign a percentage of your home, and here's money, right? And I think that when you start giving money to people that easy, eventually leads to a reckoning.
There's no debt repayment on that.
Nope.
There's just. So they're just saying, okay, you have a $500,000 home, you have $250,000 in equity. Let me give you $100,000, and I own that percentage of your home.
Yep.
Is there a liquidation time? Is there a repayment?
I think it's
time,
10
or
years, 15 years.
So they're just securing equity in people's houses with no repayment, waiting for that waterfall day or the sale or whatever. Do they share in the upside percentage? Right. So they're taking the percentage.
They're your
Wow.
partner.
I did not know this existed.
Yeah, we lost a deal in Saltoren because of that. In Saltoren, and we'll talk about that later. But we had this lady who basically thought that she had an $80,000 second, and when we asked for the repayment, it was 140K. And she's like, "What do you mean 140K?" Like, well, you have an equity appreciation thing, but that's not the problem. The problem is like, and by the way, before you sell it, you have to list it for 3 months, blah blah blah. You have to, do three offers and 2 appraisals, and so not only you and I'm not saying it's wrong. By the way, I think it's a great product, but I think that
cash, right?
But
that
a
I
lot
understand.
of people don't understand they're getting a partner.
But it's also, so for example, if they have a traditional first mortgage and they don't make a couple payments, there's probably some kind of an escalation clause.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Liquidate it, and that's what. So maybe we can call those people house pirates to some degree down the road.
You know what?
It serves a need, though, doesn't it, for people that need cash?
It serves a need, and by the way, it serves a good need, and it's a good intention product. Mm-hmm. But it's like reverse mortgages.
Right. No, of course.
Reverse mortgages serves a need. It's a very expensive product. Some people call reverse mortgages a scam, right? Because of the fees and everything like that. But there's a lot of people right now that, that don't understand what a reverse mortgage is. Like the family thinks that they, oh, that's gonna die, and we're gonna get the home. They get zero.
They get zero, right?
Well, because at the end, the reverse mortgage has to liquidate.
Correct. No, understood. But they think it serves their needs during retirement because they can get the equity out of everything. But what happens when they pass?
But listen, and again, going to sell to rent, which so let's go back a little bit about the luck part.
Right.
The luck part. I tell my daughters, I have 3 daughters, 17, 15, and 10, and a wife, and I love them very much. But 4 women at home, that's rough, it's right? Lucky. That's rough and lucky, right? Yeah. You have to be very lucky for that one. So I tell my daughters that at some point you're gonna hear a story of a guy who basically sells towels, okay? And he's in a plane going to visit clients or to a conference or even to go to Cancun for vacation, and sits down next to a lady and says, "Hi, my name is Joe. How are you?" And says hi, just says hi.
Okay. And
they start talking like the old-fashioned way. Remember when you travel in planes and there was no this, and
no swiping, yes.
And you talk to the person next, because 4 hours you have to talk to somebody. And they start talking, and she goes, "Oh yeah, what do you do?" It's like, "Oh, you know what? I sell towels." She goes, "No shit. I am the head of purchasing of the towels for Walmart."
Got
it. And then a year or 2 years later, this guy's a millionaire because, he's selling towels to Walmart. What are they going to say, Jerry? That the guy was lucky that he sat next to a person who buys towels for Walmart. My story is different. My story is that the guy basically is hustling all day. And he was basically having a conversation with somebody who happened to be the head of buying for Walmart. And God puts us in front of situations for a reason. And sometimes, how many times we had in front of us the person that we need to solve our problems or to create a business, but we failed to talk to them.
Got it.
Right? How many, and you never know. You can be sitting in front of a table of somebody and you don't like the guy.
So luck favors the bold, or luck favors the person that's constantly hustling, right? And looking for opportunity. And then all of a sudden you're sitting next to the guy.
I think that when you do the right thing, you do the right thing. So I pray to God every morning. I pray to God to give me light. One of the things, peace and happiness and health and all that stuff. It says, give me light. Show me the path.
Right.
But when you show me a path, like put a big freaking sign that says, "This is the path." Right? No. Don't put me in front of somebody who's the person I need to talk to, and it happens that that person doesn't talk. Right?
No, I agree. Everything that we do is surrounding those values and the systems. And I believe in God, and I believe God created a system, right? And if you do a metaphor, right? Most entrepreneurs, they create their own jobs, right?
Yes.
But if you go back to the Old Testament, the New Testament, it's interesting how it works, right? So if you look at God as the creator or the visionary, right? Just
Yeah.
like you as an entrepreneur, just like myself, then he creates, the heaven, the earth, the lights, the stars, the moons, and everything every day, right? So what is the stars, the moon, and everything like that? Those are the managers, right? They're the managers of the system that he, or the creator, right, built. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out what the laws of the universe look like. And it's already been created, and it's in the Old Testament, the New Testament. But then think about it. Then he eventually created man. Those are your managers and things like that. But then you have Moses, right? So he's your integrator. So I align. I'm serious. I like it.
Hey, man.
Why? Because it's all right there. But most people as entrepreneurs, they make the mistake, right? They start as Moses. They create themselves a job. They didn't start with a visionary, create managers, create a system, a manager, accountability, and everything like that. And that's the difference. And you and I see all these entrepreneurial books, all these thought leaders, Tony Robbins, all of them, right? But when you look back at those basic things, right, it's all there. So I'm with
No,
you. And I
I,
believe in the law of the universe, right? What comes around goes around. The system is created. There's no dark
I,
without light.
I do think that when you do the right things, opportunities are put in front of you, right? And
100%.
I'll tell you the genesis of sell to rent. So when we
So
yeah.
real quick, on your single family portfolios, you got into because we buy ugly houses, right? Tell us where you went from that opportunity. You explained why you were buying, it was a crash, right?
Yeah.
You were buying below replacement cost values. You were churning around, renting them to Section 8. So 12 caps, everything of that nature. You raised money, right? When you
Yes.
ran out of money. And so tell me, where did that end up? What did the end game look like for you?
So in 2008, we bought our first house in Pompano.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I started sort of pitching people, right? So Jimmy, my partner back then, and then we brought in Saul, his brother, and Jimmy and I are second degree cousins, so we created this company with him and Saul. It was one house, right? And I started going to people and saying, this is a great opportunity, and people are like, Danny, if it's a great opportunity, how come you don't have one? And I'm like, I don't have the liquidity. It's like, yeah, but you have friends who can lend you money.
So you
So
started your real estate career raising money because you saw the opportunity and you
I
were the
started the
operator.
real estate career when I saw the opportunity, and in order to raise money, you have to have conviction. In order to have conviction, you have to have skin in the game. And I cannot go to people and say, do this thing when I haven't done it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, I went to family and friends. I says, I need to raise money for one. I overpaid for that one, by the way. I overpaid, right?
Okay.
But it got me started. Then I went to people that I knew, and I said, listen, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You have to be all in. And people didn't have the conviction because they didn't see it. Everybody was scared, right? So sometimes what you need is that guide in the desert that basically says, this is the way, right?
Right.
Um,
Passion,
I mean,
conviction.
you know how many people didn't cross the Red Sea because they didn't believe? More
Wow.
than they crossed it, okay?
Wow. Got
So
it.
sometimes is you have to be able to, create a path and lead people through that path. Very hard,
Faith,
especially
hope.
very hard, especially when you don't have the credibility that money brings. Okay. But I had credibility that knowledge brings. So I was an educated person with a background and with things to lose, right? So
And a
we,
few people that believed in you, your
right.
partners, your cousins. Okay.
Well, my cousin Jimmy had his second, his We Buy Ugly Houses business, which also wasn't doing well. And so we kind of like got together and figured out, out of the roughness that we were having, how to build something. And we said, you know what, let's go build a business where we buy these houses, we fix them, we rent them. We're not partners in it. It was just people didn't want to hear funds, the word funds, because Madoff and all that stuff. And then, from there on, we started approaching people. It says, this is your house. We're going to buy this house with your money. You're going to wire directly to the title company. Title's going to be on yours. One led to two led to three, and then it's when you start sort of creating and projecting. Okay, if I'm going to have 1,000 homes, what do I need? And so we had created our own property management company, and then we created on, property construction, and then we had to create our own software because there was no software. Long story short, this is 2009, 10. The single family asset class has not been created yet. There were a lot of people owned a lot of homes, but not institutional, and we're trying to create an institutional platform.
And I remember there was no lending for that.
No,
There was no
zero.
lending product.
Didn't
Right.
exist.
Not like multifamily back then.
It's zero. And so I remember a friend of mine called me from New York. He says, Danny, what are you up to? And, naturally, this is what I'm up to. It's like, you idiot, your stupid businesses, you're going to get killed. Right. And then that same friend called me a year later and said, oh, I got these guys from Blackstone Invitation Homes who want to talk to you. And this is 2012.
How many homes did you have at that time?
I don't remember, Jerry, probably 30, 40. And we had some small multifamily.
Right. But
they were not ours.
In the beginning, you were raising money per deal. You were collateralizing every single property for the investor. Then you were fixing them. Were you flipping them, or no? You were renting them, creating cash flow? Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't my cash flow. It belonged to the investor.
Were you getting paid at the time, Danny? Was there enough cash flow?
We were getting paid very little. I lived out of, I will say, debt. Okay.
Got it. But you kept marching on.
But again, we were charging $15,000 every time we bought a house. And then we changed the system, and where instead of buying it with your money, we bought it with our money. I remember we bought a house once with...
What was that tipping point for an investor that's looking? How did you go from their money to your money?
Oh, eventually we started accumulating money.
From cash flow.
We started borrowing people. We started borrowing from somebody, right? But listen, you have to be creative, right? So I remember we bought a house for $40,000 and we paid it with credit cards, and because you needed cash, right? Then what we did is we went to Home Depot. We bought a bunch of gift cards, and we paid our contractor with gift cards, and he gave us cash. And then
there's big lessons here.
Yes.
Right? People who are saying, how do I get started? I'm afraid. And a lot of people just dream and they don't execute. Listen to Danny. Credit cards, Home Depot, gift cards, family money, friends. Keep going.
Jerry, AI is going to create a leverage playing field of knowledge.
Yes, we're gonna. Yeah,
okay.
We're gonna get there. I know we're gonna get there. Class and everything.
But here it is. Nothing will replace the stick of dynamite up the ass with the pepper, with the jalapeno pepper sitting in it. So it's about grit, and it's about you wake up every day and you go, see what you do, right? It's the pep and the step. Right. You know somebody by the way they walk, the pep on the step, right?
Energy, right?
It's the energy,
yeah.
Right? So you figure it out, because when you figure it out as you making your road, it will take you there. So what happened is, Invitation Home came to our office. They saw what we had. They actually said, "Hey, we want you to be part of this, South Florida."
Right. Interesting. So what you're saying is, everybody, because of AI, the knowledge will make everybody a Wharton grad, right? I get it.
Hopefully better than that, but yes.
Right. Even the smart, right? It'll level the playing field with knowledge. But if you don't have the pepper in your ass, or the grit, the work, the execution, there's no success. That's what you're saying, right?
You're talking like Joe Rogan today, because you went to AI and says, I want to interview Danny like Joe Rogan, right?
A little bit. Yes, I did.
Right?
You should.
So AI 100%. Is like, listen, you go to AI and says, you're thinking like a real estate expert who's owned 50,000. I remember that the AI knows everything. It's just a question of how you ask the question, right?
Right. We don't have to teach people cap rates today, or how to underwrite a deal. In 10 minutes, AI can underwrite any deal like this.
It's irrelevant, right? It's like, I saw 6,000 homes to go buy 400. Somebody had to see that. Now, with the technology we have today, maybe I would have done it, from my desk. But I will tell you that the lessons that I learned by going to the properties.
Got it.
People think that. I drove 1 year 24,000 miles, but from house to house. That's the circumference of the world, right? So, what happens is, you walk into a lot of situations, and these were rough neighborhoods, man. These were rough neighborhoods. I didn't have a gun. I had a screwdriver, so I can open the doors, but I didn't have a gun. Thankfully, I didn't have a gun. I don't like guns in that sense. Even the cops were sometimes afraid to get in there. But you talk to people, and when you talk to people, you're nice to people. They give you intelligence. You learn. You walk into so many homes now. You can, that gave me the knowledge. So when we're buying houses from the court, that you cannot get in, I can literally look at house from outside, and I can look at a picture of a house, and I can tell you whether it's brick or frame from a picture.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right?
I was on the street. I had my car stolen. I had everything.
Right. So
I had everything. All my keys from all my apartments were stolen in my car.
So going back to it, I think that real estate is about, yes, it's knowledge and access to money and things like that. But ultimately, real estate is about, having the grit to go out and, knock on the doors and operate a property, and there's a problem with the roof, you get into the roof, right?
It's back to the sausage factory.
We had on one multi-families. A guy calls and says, "Oh, we're gonna have to change a toilet. It's $250 for labor." I'm like, "It's a wax ring, 20 minutes in and out. You're in and out for 40. So that means that your hours were $250."
Okay, so at your size today, you're scaled, obviously, right? We're going to talk. You've got over $350 million in real estate transactions, all that good stuff. Is it important still for you to know how much it costs to replace the toilet?
You tell me.
I mean, it is at a high level, right? When I look at my expense reports and my cap rates, correct, 100%. But how many sophisticated scaling investors they think that those are distractions? They should have an operator paying attention.
Well, let me put it this way. I know a lot of extremely successful people that they don't even know how to, change a light bulb. Okay, and one can argue that while I'm figuring out my life lessons on how to change toilets, they're having conversations with people who can get them money. But my path was my path, right? And in my path, what I know today is this: what are the rules for making money according to Warren Buffett?
According to value. He's a value investor.
Rules to making money from Warren Buffett. Number one rule, do not lose money. Number two rule, look at rule number one, right?
Of course. That's right. Okay.
So what we're proud of is we never lost a penny for anybody because we know how to manage, right? And we know how to operate. And you know what it costs, right? Because otherwise you're doing your business from a desk. So when somebody tells you it's going to cost $10,000 to do a rehab on a multifamily apartment, you're like, show me. And then my mind start going, okay, how much you're spending in the parts and how much you're spending in this, and how much is the labor, and you're charging me $200 to change a door? Really? I can do it for that's 30 minutes. So when we had that single family portfolio, I remember Miguel at some point our turnovers were out of control. And I sat down with Miguel, the head of maintenance. I says, Miguel, let's go through this. And I said, listen, Miguel, we're going to do, my industrial engineering background comes and helps, right? And says, we're going to do times and movement. What are the parts? What are the labor? How much time does it take you to do this, and that? And you have to have this mentality of if you don't do it, I'll do it.
No, okay? I get it. What I'm hearing, right, from you, and then I've seen failure and success, is when operators start the way you start, bootstrapping, whatever you call it, right? Then they get to a scalable level and they get too far away from operations. They put leaders in place, managers, whatever it is. And I personally, and I know a couple of our friends, they lost it, right? And the next thing you know, they're bleeding 100,000. Why does that happen? Because they got too far away from the sausage factory? How much the door costs?
I think
they're trying to be this entrepreneur, and I should be at this level. I'm going to be head of acquisitions. I'm going to raise money. Right. The next thing you know, they're too far away from operations, and what happens?
Every successful factory owner starts with one machine, two machines, and then they always tour the factory, and they know the employees that are in the factory, right? So I'll tell you a coconut tree story. Okay, true story. Okay. We had 8 coconut trees in one of our small multifamilies, and Miguel, who I trust very much, comes, we got a quote to do, to trim the coconuts and the whole thing for $1,600. And I go, Miguel, in Cuba, people pay you to go out, right? If you're going to pay $1,600 to do the coconuts, right? I'll do them. I'll spend a weekend, right? climbing up, trees, and I'll trim the coconuts myself. It's like, yeah, but you don't know how to do that. I'm like, that's why you have YouTube for, right? So I bought spikes to climb coconut trees, right? And then you go like, can I die? Can I not die? And the whole thing. Long story short, I don't know if Miguel went to my partner Jimmy and said, you know what? Or Jimmy went to my partner Miguel and said, Miguel, tell him you got somebody for $400, right?
So we don't, just so Danny won't climb the coconut tree.
Just so he don't climb the. But my point is this: it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. Right.
Oh, I get it.
Because there's a risk of going up. Then you can bring one of these forklifts, the lift things that you can rent for $200 and then just pick up the coconut.
Right, 100%.
Right. And so I think that when people operate real estate and they're up here, and you have to have layers of management, right? And that layers of management need to be operated. It needs to be people who actually give a fuck about, whether we spend $200, coconuts or 50. And yes, maybe you get 3 quotes and the 3 quotes are $200 each for every palm. And yeah, that's what the market pays. But here's where we create value. We go like, no, I don't care what the market pays. I know we can do it for way much less, not 5% less.
You had a key thing there. Hire people who care.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. You know what? It's funny. I just heard those words from Elon Musk about the government. Right?
They don't care.
They don't care. The employees, Doge. Right? So another key takeaway that I just got from Danny, hire people that care. Because if they don't care, they'll spend $1,600 on a coconut tree. So when you look at real estate profits, this is exactly the kind of things that destroy your NOI, don't get your investors paid, or destroy a deal.
And you know what, Jerry, and going back to real estate, and again, we had this really good single family portfolios, multifamily, all in South Florida. We had a really good company. We were leaders in our field. When the single family world started, we were there when when people were talking about it as an asset class.
Tell us the success. Tell us when you exited. Let's hear that part.
So we grew this portfolio in 2012. We had the opportunity to partner with Invitational Homes and Blackstone, and we ended up hooking up with a large family office out of Latin America who liked what we had built. Mm-hmm. They liked the platform, the factory. They liked that we were hands-on. They liked that we had 70 people. We had a warehouse full of parts, and our construction, we had a process, right? It was me and Jimmy and Sol, my 2 partners, and we had people, and we had people that cared, right? And they bought into that and said, here's money, go run. They gave us about $60 million, and we actually started buying. Unfortunately, they didn't see the world as we saw it, which is, we have to buy everything. Like everything was like, what's the cap rate on this? You're allowed to buy at 11 cap rate, but not a 10.5. And in my mind, I'm like, buy everything, because everything was so cheap, right? It's like when you go to Costco, right? Go to Costco for one thing, you end up with $1,000. Why it's so cheap? But we saw that it was there because you couldn't build it for that price. Anyway, as we grew the platform and, we started getting loans from banks right now. And, we had the family offices behind us and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. We started becoming more institutional. We had more processes, more procedures, and we started, elaborating investment theses and all these things that you learn from people that manage money. And, my thesis basically boiled down to this: is real estate, residential real estate, it's supported in 3 legs. One is your replacement cost, right? You have to buy below replacement cost. That applies for everything, right? The second part is you have to buy at a cap rate that it's higher than your cost of capital, because otherwise you're negative. Of course. Now, it's okay to buy at a cap rate that it's lower than your cost of capital if you believe there's going to be appreciation. Remember, cap rate is a static. A cap rate of an empty building is negative. Right. But when you buy an empty building, you go like, it's going to stabilize at a 7. Okay? And the third part, and most important, is what I call economic value. So if it's cheaper to buy than to rent, then you should be buying. If it's cheaper to rent than to buy, then you should be selling.
Okay, so just go step back. Your cap rate has to be higher than the cost of capital. So for people that are
Your
listening, not
long-term cap
everyone's going to
rate,
understand that. Right. So if
your
you have a
long-term
7
cap rate.
cap, you're saying your interest rate has to be 5%?
Well, not that, because remember, it's a weighted average of your bank debt versus your equity, right?
Correct.
So
Okay.
if your best use of your money in the bank is at 1% in your bank account, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different story.
Understood.
Right? But my point is that the cool thing about real estate is there's also appreciation. So one of the mistakes that we made is like, oh, that cap rate is too low. Yeah, but that's the appreciation. We failed to capture appreciation in our model when we started.
In underwriting. Right.
Because at that moment, there was no certainty appreciation. Everybody, of course, there's appreciation. And there's appreciation because of inflation, right?
Right. But it's very difficult to write in appreciation. And most people almost are afraid to underwrite.
Unless you are the one who's, so in financial terms, alpha and beta is two different things. Alpha is the value you bring to the table. Beta is what the market brings to the table, right? If you're buying a stock, you're basically exposed to beta. Okay. If you're buying a building that it's ugly and you make it better, you're alpha, you're bringing value to the table, right?
Correct.
If you're a portfolio manager of stocks and biotech, and you happen to be a PhD in biology that understands a lot of these things, you might bring a lot of alpha to that portfolio. Okay. So
I like how you phrase it. For me, beta is volatility, right? That's the beta.
Beta is market. Beta is the idiots who are buying in Miami because they think Miami is going to appreciate.
Right. But everyone thinks that, don't they, Danny? So how do you underwrite appreciation?
Well, again, the idiots who think Miami will appreciate have proved me wrong all the time.
Right.
Because
so what's the secret?
I'm a utilitarian guy, Jerry. The cow is worth the milk it gives. If
Right.
not, it's a pet.
It's a pet.
Right? People forgot about that. It's cash cows, right? It's you buy something for rent, and that rent has to give you money. Right? So I had this argument with somebody the other day. It's like, oh, I should have bought properties in Brickell. And I'm like, no, because Brickell went like this. The houses, let's say Miami Garden went like this. But during that time, you receive money, you receive income. And income de-risks things. Rental rates will probably not go down a lot because, if they go down a lot, people will go rent a house, right? I mean, office, you cannot give office away.
Right.
But if you put a property in a market that has labor and has dynamics, has a price.
So there is risk in real estate, right? So
always risk. If there wasn't risk, go put money in banks.
Of course. And office got derailed really because of a black swan event, right?
Not a black swan event, sorry. No.
COVID? No.
Okay.
No. Tell me why.
Remember before COVID, I started talking about the effects of technology in real estate?
Okay.
Remember, I started talking about self-driving cars, and remember I said, you know what? People buy real estate, but they really don't understand the technologies that will affect that. Remember, 100%. I had a presentation on it, and I said,
100%. So if I could phrase this in a question, Danny, what is going to derail which asset class and the future in real estate? And give me your scenario on this.
Oh, man.
And you were correct when you spoke about this pre-COVID. So let's answer that question.
Let's start by technologies that are real and are happening. AI.
AI.
Self-driving cars, trucks, platforms, whatever you want to call it. 3D printing, right? Quantum computing. All these things, right? So let's think about this, just so you guys understand where we're going with this. It's 2006 and Danny Kattan comes and says, hey, let's go buy a Barnes & Noble. You're like, this guy's an idiot. He hasn't heard about Amazon, right?
Right.
Okay. Let's go buy a gas station, Jerry, today. Why not? Electric cars, right?
Yes.
That's
unless
simple.
it reverses.
They will tell you, oh, no, because when we don't have gas anymore, I'll take that gas station and I build something there because gas stations are in the really good corners. Everybody and their mom is going to be building a really good corner, so you're going to have oversupply. Okay, Jerry, I have a warehouse that basically has a 30-year contract with a parts distributor of cars They distribute car parts for, all the Toyota dealership. Cool, right?
As
Okay,
long as they
think
keep
about
paying
what
the
a
rent.
3D printing machine is going to do to a car parts distribution. Now I can print them. I can print the part. I don't need that much warehouse space.
Right. And you don't need inventory storage.
AI will probably
Warehouse.
make your inventory faster. I'm an industrial
Mhm.
engineer, so I can understand, what AI does to an inventory management system. The
Mhm.
fact that you have trucks that are now self-driving and are not reliant on, whether the trucker woke up that morning or not, it means that you can, have tighter windows. You reduce your inventory, I don't know, from 10 days to 9. That's 10% reduction in inventory, so forth and so on. But the silver bullet will be that 3D printing machine that eventually will be small enough to be in every car dealership, assuming there's car dealerships.
Got it.
Okay,
Nope.
assuming that we have cars, assuming that, well, we're going to have cars, but assuming we need that many cars. So every technology that it's out there, somehow it's going to affect real estate, even residential real estate. We might have robots constructing buildings, right? And so it will be cheaper. But at the end, the only thing that we do is we need a place to live. So going back to office, if you remember my presentation, I said that there is this technology that is, teleconferencing, and I will show you guys a technology called holographic teleconferencing. That is the same technology that was used to, for Tupac to show up at a concert. And I'm like, if you have a bunch of holograms working inside of an office,
got it.
You don't need to have an office because now you can work inside of a virtual room.
Right. So Danny did give this
Office
presentation.
office
Yeah.
was going to be disrupted. The technology was there. COVID merely catalyzed it.
Right. I was just going to
And then the
say.
millennials destroyed it because they said, I want to work from away.
Right. So the technology was there. You did give us a presentation on how technology will disrupt real estate. This is 5-6 years ago in something called the Commercial Real Estate Forum that I'm a founder of. Danny's a member, and he talked about how technology will disrupt almost every asset class. COVID was the accelerant and the catalyst, and that's what happened. So if we're talking to our audience right now and you're looking for 12 to 36 months, what asset class, Danny Kattan, will be disrupted by technology in the next 36 months? I know that's not an easy question, but where do you think it will happen, and who should be on the lookout that is a real estate investor, whether it either an opportunity or to
Okay.
start letting go of property?
Okay. So I'll tell you which asset class will not get disrupted, which is residential. I'm going to post a link to a bunch of articles I've written in Forbes. I'm talking about the effects of real estate. And I actually said, what can we learn about multifamily and Star Wars? And Star Wars, basically, thousands of years away in some other planet, people still have beds with sheets. So we're still going to have a bed. As humans, we need a place to sleep and to gather, right? But I can tell you one that comes for me that is, I would say, easy, is self-storage.
Self-storage.
So
And this is
self-storage
short term,
basically,
36 months?
no, Jerry, I don't think 36 months anything gets disrupted. And again, nothing that I say here is absolute. But the problem with real estate is that when you invest in real estate, most people want a 5-year exit. So you have to underwrite real estate for 5 years. When you step in somebody's shoes, you have to say, in 5 years, who is going to be my buyer for this and why will they buy it?
Right. And that's the most common IRR projection.
So in
5 years for
in theory,
syndicators.
you have to think about how will that person buy it for, and what his world or her world will look like in 5 years from now. Now, I'll tell you what the world's going to look for 5 years from now. Self-driving cars are going to change the way society behaves. Because people think about self-driving cars, it's about comfort. It's about me, you, or Jerry, not driving. And, self-driving cars, it will disrupt, the workforce class that do not have a car to go to labor. So right now, somebody who's no car and wants to get a job can only get jobs that are around the bus route. But if suddenly you can take a shared self-driving car, that can drop you outside of the bus route, that person instead of spending 2-3 hours in buses all day can be done there for 30 minutes. So imagine the productivity that will be unleashed in society. By the way, ARC Research, Kathy Wood has a really, 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 really good primer on self-driving cars and the whole thing. I do believe that one of the things that nobody's seeing this is how the future of job mobility will be affected to those people who don't have cars. Now, for the people who have cars, self-driving cars, basically shared self-driving cars, by the way. Self-driving cars, the idea of self-driving car, whether it's electric or not, is that you don't need a driver. If you need a driver, then the cost per mile goes down to a point where it's just cheaper than public transportation. But
interesting.
So this whole concept of society being disrupted by self-driving cars. So think about it. I don't need that much parking space in shopping centers or buildings. I'm in the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Hallandale, and I'm begging them to, allow zero parking lots and just allow the developer to take the decision. They actually already took them from 2 to 1. Mm-hmm. And I'm also saying, allow people who are building stack parking to have higher ceilings. So tomorrow we can convert that empty parking lot into something.
You made a very interesting comment. You said that a self-driving car that is shared without a driver will be lower than the cost of public transportation.
Yes.
Right. So think about that as a real estate play, right? People own retail around public transportation hubs, right? Like New York City, the subway stops, things of that nature.
You know what, Jerry?
The bright line stops.
I get that, but that requires long-term capital. So I'm just here to tell people what's going to happen, right? And again, as my wife constantly reminds me, I'm 50% wrong all the time. So hopefully in this time, listen, I don't know whether I'm right or not.
So what about
but if I'm right, a lot of people get fucked in their real estate investments. And the one that I think that for me is most disruptive is self-storage.
Self-storage.
Because self-storage, if you have a self-driving platform, think about a self-driving car as a platform with 4 wheels and a cabin on top. Change that cabin for a box. Okay?
Okay.
And the box will come to you instead of you going to the box. Now, if you have a self-storage, think about what you need to do. You have to take the thing from your garage or whatever it is, put it in the car, drive, take it out of the car, put it in a little cart, go up the elevator, put in your thing, come back, all over. But if
Pods is coming to you now. They drop it on
Pods
your
coming to you, but Pods is very
Right.
expensive.
Right, it is.
Right? And it's not immediate. You have the whole thing and, right? But if you think about it, think about a box with 4 wheels that you call your self-driving self-storage, self-driving self-storage, comes to you in front, parks in front of your house, you take out, you put in, that's it. Not only you're going to be saving time, but the fact that you don't have to be in a self-storage that it's close to your house, which usually real estate is very expensive. Now that box can go and be parked where? In the boonies, where you have a bunch of parking space of, shopping centers that are being used for the parking space. So let's say that I'm wrong, that nothing like that happens. 0.
Okay.
Okay. How many people are going to keep using self-storage? Remember, we don't store cassettes and tapes and CDs anymore and all that stuff, right? Let's say that I'm right. Who are you going to sell that self-storage to in 5 years from now?
I get it. Well,
right?
They'll find another conversion use, won't they? Just like office?
Yeah, but how many offices can you convert at the same time? And the cost?
I agree.
They're not meant to be converted. Nobody ever thought about converting them.
Right. Oh, 100%. So there's another opportunity if you're a buyer because you have a vacant building, right? And you can change the use of some sort, which is what we're seeing in office. But I get it, self-storage. What about self-driving cars in retail centers?
Of course, that too. You're going to have a lot of out parcels available. And the question...
Parking. So if I own retail, eventually the zoning will change where I can out parcel half my parking lot at a Walmart center?
The cities will have to allow you for that because otherwise, what are you going to do there?
Right.
So cities will change the way they have to think about it, right? And that's where like, oh, land will become cheaper, right? And maybe that's a solution for it. But having said that, I think that the problem with the housing affordability is not the land. Because they can give you away the land, still doesn't pencil out.
Right. Well, you have the Live Local Act, right? That's changed everything in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And now they're building multifamily on lots that were worthless. Is that because maybe they see self-driving cars? Because they're Live Local's
No,
only
listen,
on
trust me,
major arteries.
the politicians have no clue about this thing. The SB 102, this Live Local, was created because of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And, you know, listen, I'm in a city. I'm in the planning zone of a city.
Right.
Okay? You know, we
They're
make
taking
those.
the cherry corners. They turn cheap dirt into valuable dirt by building multifamily, but
Sure.
no parking lots.
And now you're going
right?
to have issues with more cars in the street. And so you got traffic and a lot of things. And, you know, I think that you're going to have a lot of society is definitely going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. Think about AI.
Changing
Lawyers have 100 people just reading things. Now they're going to have one.
Nope.
Suddenly you got this lawyers that were used to charging $100 an hour, right?
I get it. I know.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, and you know, $100 an hour. I mean,
People don't realize the power.
$300 an hour. What are they going to do?
Listen, I know a woman that filed a divorce herself. She couldn't afford the lawyer. Cost her $30,000. He was bleeding her to death. She programmed a super agent. She literally programmed everything into it. It filed her motions, everything done. You know what it cost her? Just some time in teaching her super AI.
If they can only do that for insurance agents, you know, I don't have to see you that much. There you go.
Right. No, listen, it's coming, and believe it. You don't think we're building a super agent now?
But Jerry, who are you going to rent this $4,000 a month condos to when people that are living in there are probably going to get fired? And then there's the second part, which is, I want to work from home. I don't want to go to my office. Great. So what happened? You'd open a whole thing of like, oh, I don't need anybody here. Then maybe I can hire people in Latin America for Danny, 1/3 of the price.
Did you just predict a real estate crash?
No, I haven't. Future? I don't think
what you said is when all the lawyers are gone and all the insurance guys are gone and super A agents, who's going to rent that condo for $4,000?
I want to take a quick break to ask, did you enjoy the video so far? If you want to learn how real estate titans make millions, hit that subscribe button now. Join us on Real Estate Profit Boost with Jerry Katz at Jerry Katz CEO for expert tips and insider strategies to grow your wealth.
Well, Jerry.
But hold on, makes sense.
Yes, but I don't think you will that because I think that one of the things that listen, the best example of this is before when we used to build buildings way back then, you used to dig foundations with shovels, right? And then you can only build buildings so high. Right. And then they brought in the steam shovel. And then you can dig your foundation and then, you know, you have steam elevators that you can build buildings higher.
Right.
And then, you know, they started going higher and then somebody invented the elevator. Actually, the elevator was invented. It wasn't safe. It was Otis who developed a safety mechanism that allowed people to have trust in elevators. And that's why buildings kept on going higher. So when the operators and the switchboards were replaced, they'll figure something else.
Danny, back to the elevator. So what was the most expensive priced apartment in a 5-story building in New York City before the elevator?
The first floor.
And when the elevator was invented?
The last floor.
The penthouse. Right.
Yeah.
So you just, exactly. Technology's disruption in the value of real estate. Love it. Thank you. Keep going.
Okay. And so I think that a lot of things will change and those people who are lawyers and, you know, will become something else. If the government doesn't give them money, oh, you poor lawyer, you're making $200, now you're unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, trust me, they're smart enough. They'll figure out a way to create something valuable for society rather than suing people.
Right. In my experience, and probably with yours, every time there's a new technology, people think people will lose jobs. But what happens is there's a switch. Another opportunity is created.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Noah Yuval Harari said something that actually makes a lot of sense, and this is why I'm fearful of this. Most technologies had decades to advance. You think about it, the first phone, it's a brick, 1988, 85, whatever it is. We start seeing, at least in Colombia, 1993, 94, right? The Nokias, right? And the whole thing. iPhone is 2003, 2004, something like that, right? Internet, so forth and so on. We had decades to adjust. With AI, it's been a year, 2 years. I think it's just going way too fast and people are not going to be able to adjust. But again, it's on them, Jerry. It's not like this is, you understand what I'm saying? We need more welders and we need more carpenters and we need more people who can do manual labor. And there's jobs out there. There's real jobs, right? You talk to a restaurant owner and says, oh, I cannot find enough waiters.
Right. That's like the single in entrepreneurs.
We need teachers.
We need teachers.
We need people serving the community. Right? And so I think that, so let's go back to real estate.
Right.
So because of technology, we'll disrupt real estate in ways that we cannot foresee. The only place that I believe is worth investing is in residential real estate. Because that's not going to be disrupted by technology. It might be disrupted because they closed the factory. So, again, make sure that where you're investing, has a diverse enough economy. And that's when we sold our portfolio of single family, homes to Cerberus in 2018, we sold it because we saw that, we were selling like a little bit above replacement cost. We were selling it way, what a cap rate was way below our cost of capital. And, it was becoming cheaper to rent than to buy. Okay. And we said, all these things are showing me red, let's sell. And when we sat down with my partners, with Jimmy and Sol, and we said, where do we go? That's when I started talking about, there's a lot of technologies that will affect real estate. And I think the safest one is residential. And they go like, bullshit, you're always talking like, out of your ass, right? And I'm like, no, like I got this funny mind that I look at things and I'm like, oh. And that's when I started researching the effects of technology in real estate. And that's when I created that presentation. This was 2018. Mm-hmm. And so to this day, I'm still convinced that investors in real estate are making a huge mistake. Huge. Which is they want outsized returns from real estate. And they end up taking stupid risk. Like development, or they taking stupid risk like variable debt instead of fixed debt. Okay. Mm-hmm. They end up taking risk of investing in things that are, not established.
Not established, right?
Real estate should not be where an investor makes the money. You're an insurance guy. You should be making money in insurance. You make bicycles in your factory, make the money in the bicycle factory. You're a lawyer, make the money lawyering, right?
Got it. But
real estate should be the place where you deposit your money to grow that money, tax advantage, above inflation, and in a safe way. We have never lost a penny for anybody. The reason is because we are very conservative at what we do. And so the other day, somebody was telling me, Danny, why is it so hard to raise money for multifamily? And I said, because we're competing with risk. And where you're a developer, right? A developer is a guy who wears rosy glasses. Everything's fine for them. We have this swamp, and we're going to build a building, and people are going to come here, and it's a great, and, smile, and great energy, and so forth and so on, right?
If they catch the wave, you become George Perez, the related group, right? Billionaire.
Yeah. And by the way, George Perez was really, really well prepared, and the story of George Perez is he was prepared and he knew what he was doing. Right?
He's also had his times of ups and downs, but you know the old saying, right? If you owe the bank $1 million, you have a problem.
A multifamily underwriter,
the bank has a problem.
So when we pitch multifamily, we go like, well, we did this and we went all the buildings and we look at this and we acid tested the rent. And so you're not telling this great story full of smiles. You're telling this story of like, plain freaking vanilla. You don't want somebody managing your money. Go like, this is great because you know what? Invest in crypto, man. If you're going to speculate with something, go speculate in crypto. Buy NVIDIA. Buy Tesla. Right?
I got it.
But you're giving your money to a developer. I'm saying that all developers are wrong. Most of them are right. But when it hits the fan, you lose all your money. This is what I call parachute economics.
I love it.
Parachute economics is, if it works, the parachute opens, you land, great. If it doesn't, done. You lose 100% of your money.
I've been down that road. So have you. That was, for you, it was Countrywide. For me, it was Wall Street in the tech bubble. So
I didn't lose any money in Countrywide. I just lost a lot of time doing the tech bubble. But anyway.
The tech bubble. Okay, so just real quick. So you raised the money. You exited the single family portfolio. Celebrate your success here a little bit. How big was the single family portfolio?
So
you took, credit cards from Home Depot, and at the end you exited at this, and you and your partners had this equity. And over how long?
So I don't like to talk about numbers because at the end numbers,
okay.
But let me put it this way: we did well. Okay.
How many houses in the end?
At the end, we ended up selling a portfolio of 400 houses that not all belong to us. And 400 small multifamily doors that not all belong to us. Remember, we had a lot of people that also were with us. We did extremely well by our investors. And then that's when they came and said, where do we put our money? And we said, multifamily. Now, we took that money.
It was easily sold to a larger institution.
Yeah, we sold 200.
What you believed, because you mentioned that you said.
We sold 200 of those homes to Cerberus, to First Key.
Right. You said some key words. It was getting cheaper to buy than it was to rent. That's when you started making a shift out of
yes, because at the end, listen, we sold for $250,000 per home. Okay, now those homes are worth $400,000. I'm sorry, $450,000. People tell me, Danny, do you regret? Of course, I regret it.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Right? Think about it. Multiply 250 times 400. That's $100 million we left on the table. Okay. But at the moment, the data was telling you it was time to exit. The data was telling you, why will you keep a property that you can sell for $250 that you can build brand new for $260? Well, my properties were 1955.
Right.
It didn't make sense. And then let's not forget, Jerry, one thing. January of 2020. There was 10 years worth of inventory of the condos in Miami.
I remember.
Regular inventory at 6 months, it was 60 months.
No, I know.
COVID saved a lot of people those people, by the way, lucky. 1,000%. That was luck. They were broke. And this thing COVID came in, I don't know.
Listen,
right?
If I would have held all my real estate from 2007, I lost my butt in Wall Street. So I learned on Wall Street, bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. So I'm always taking profits early, but I lost everything, after 8 years of working, but I had a condo in Manhattan that saved me. So at the end of the day, I did the same thing in 07. If I look back, I had $25 million of real estate in 07 taking profits from being broke from the last cycle. If I would have owned that today. But again, so I'm in agreement with you, right? I take my chips off the table. And then after your single family portfolio, you chose multifamily, correct?
Yes. We chose multifamily because we thought it was the safest place. Not only we knew residential, but remember when you're making decisions, you have to say, okay, is the decision that I'm making biased to what I know? Mm-hmm. Is it the best decision? Right? And so we sat down. We sat down and we figured that
than it was to rent, but yet you shifted into similar asset class, residential.
Because we're talking about single families.
Single families. Okay.
Right? And you can we sold for a 5% cap rate and we bought for a 7% cap rate.
Why would single families be higher risk than multifamily after you?
Because it was Miami. Miami was getting frothy. A single family house in Miami was becoming so expensive, you couldn't, it was cheaper to rent it than to buy it. It was cheaper to buy it than to rent it back when they were worth 120, but not when they were 250.
So you shifted to multifamily because what? The price per unit was less risk?
Yes. Not only
And
less risk,
rents.
but at that moment, we also saw that in multifamily, you can get cheaper money from Freddie Fannie. Instead of being at a 65% LTV, we can go to all the way to 80. And instead of being, I don't know, at rates of 5.5, we can be at 4.5 or 4. So the spread, the real estate, by the way, and let's talk about some real estate principles here. Real estate principles according to Danny Kattan. Okay?
Love it.
A cap rate is not a cap rate. There's a whole article I wrote about it. What will you rather get, Jerry? A cap rate of a 6 or a cap rate of a 4?
I call a 6 cap rate a 0 cap. I don't even believe it.
No, assuming that there's a 6 cap rate and a 4 cap.
A 6 cap, of course.
Of course not, because you haven't asked me the question, which is how damaged is the 4 cap that you can make? Maybe it's a shitty building you can stabilize into an 8. So there's a lot of questions that you need to ask before you decide what a cap rate is.
Right. You can't make your decision from a cap rate. Understood.
Right? And then you have leverage, right? So if you can buy a building with 90% leverage, or you can buy a building with 50% leverage, maybe the 90% leverage is a better option. And then there's risk. And a lot of people confuse risk with loan to value. Oh, you're 50% leverage. Yeah, you have low risk. I call bullshit on that one. For everybody that is hearing here,
leverage
is not lower risk. Risk is measured debt service coverage ratio, is your ability to pay the debt.
Your ability to pay the debt, right. Well, vacancy is your biggest risk, right? Even if you're at 50%
But your ability
LTV.
to pay the debt is what it's important. Now, let's take 2 examples. I'm going to be very, very extreme. Okay? Mm-hmm. In one example, for some reason, a bank will give you 99% loan to value, non-recourse. In another example, a bank will give you 50% loan to value, non-recourse. Mm-hmm. What is the riskiest?
My risk is 50% equity, the money.
There you go. Right?
Of course. I have if I'm buying a $10 million property at $5 million, out of my pocket versus $1 million out of my pocket, of course, that's more risky. I'm thinking like the lender. Understood. Go ahead.
Now, that's assuming that both have DSCR, that's a risk coverage ratios. Right.
That's I did a video on it. Go ahead.
Stop there. You can argue that, oh, you know what? But if I cannot pay the mortgage at the 90% because something happens, then I'm going to lose my building. No, Jerry. Because you got the other 40% in the bank that you didn't spend in there. You can take a little bit of that money and make it. Okay, now.
I love it.
Real
That's
estate. That's
how you look at leverage, right?
No.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. It gets better. So 2 examples. In one, you buy a house 100% with cash. Because I love it when people say, I buy everything with cash. I'm like, great, you're an idiot.
Go ahead.
Okay. And the other way, you take 100% cash, you lever it, let's call it for simplicity, 80-20, and you buy, instead of 1 house, you buy 5 houses. Right?
Right.
Okay. So let's go. What is it better, to have 5 houses with 5 different tenants or 1 house with 1 separate tenant? 5 houses, right?
Of course. Right.
Okay. Now, if the property goes from 100 to 120 and the unlevered, you make 20%. In the fully levered, you make 100% of your money.
100%. I love leverage.
Right. So leverage, if it's properly used, meaning that it's properly dialed to make sure that you have enough cash to pay for that leverage, it's very healthy. Equally important, there's some financial theory that says that companies that are levered are healthier than companies that are not levered. Why? Because at the end of the month, you have to sell the shit out of whatever you're selling to create enough income to pay for the bank. Otherwise, they'll take away your company.
Do you have a cash reserve? in
Of
your
course, you have to have
example,
a cash reserve.
right? So if you have leverage, like you said, on the 5
Yeah,
properties, how much cash reserve are you holding based on your
it
payments
depends.
on the 5 properties?
It depends.
Is it 3
Again,
months? Is it
it
6
depends,
months
Jerry.
per property?
It depends, Jerry, because every property that we buy, when you're sized the loan from Freddie Fannie,
Hmm.
okay, your size is the current NOI at 125. So in theory, I can lose 25% of my income, still make loan payment.
100%.
But a year
Well,
later, that DSCR is at 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. I'm not worried about my reserve.
right, even
We're
worse.
big boys. I'm
Right.
worried
And
about when my company is not, when my property is not producing enough cash with enough cushion
mhm.
to pay for that loan. And therefore, that's when we said, no, don't put that much leverage because we cannot achieve enough DSCR over the long period of hold of this property in order to be. So if you think about it, 3-4 years down our path, our DSCR is 2. Why? Because we have, stop, very important, what killed everybody the last 2 years? Apart from insurance.
Variable interest rates,
Why?
because interest rates shot up and
No, because people were stupidly greedy.
stupidly
Because when
greedy.
you buy real estate, you're buying real estate. If you want to bet in the bond, go to Wall Street and bet in the bond. But they
Right.
invest, and they, you know why investor lost money by buying in properties that had variable interest rates? Because the GPs basically realized that investors were asking for like stupid returns that can only be accomplished with variable interest rates. And hey, that's your poison. You want it, here you go.
Right.
I had conversations with people who didn't invest in us because our IRR was 15 and somebody was giving them an IRR of 20. I'm like, where's the risk? Why is there people don't think about risk when they're investing?
So you're saying now in Pia Residential that owns multifamily, about 400 or 500 units, I believe.
No, right now we own 1,400 units in 6 different markets, and every one of our properties is paying dividends to our investors.
Are you
We
fixed
haven't done
rate
a
interest
capital
rates?
call. We haven't lost a single penny. Zero. Why? Because every loan that we got in our capital stack is fixed. We do Fred. We're boring. We do boring very, very, very well. We underwrite to 5 years, no refinancing, no financial engineering. We talk about quality of IRR, right? And that's the important thing for the investors, right? We have a solid team. We have 3 partners. We don't travel in the same plane, the whole thing, right? I mean, it's like people invest
Where's
in
the
real estate.
waterfall?
Huh?
Where's the waterfall? Where's the exit? Where's the cash out in that structure?
So
Or
we
is it
have
just
a 7
income forever?
we have a 7% preferred that obviously we pay, we try to pay. We underwrite every one of our properties to a 7% cash on cash. Average starts low, ends up higher. Okay. We underwrite every one of our properties to about a 14%, to 15% IRR with no financial engineering, conservative underwriting. And we try
5 year?
to sort of exit in 5 years. Once we exit, we pay people a 7% preferred if we haven't paid it during the course. If we haven't, then we complement. And then it's a 70-30 or 75-25, depending how much money they invest. Net
So
of fees, by the way.
But the debt that you're using is fixed for 30-year amortization, and in
No,
5 years there's no prepay with the Fannie Freddie.
No, there's prepay, there's yield maintenance. Every property has debt of at least 10 years. The one that we just bought in Atlanta has debt of because we assumed that it was a 6-year debt at 3.5.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
But again, we take no financing risk. So let me tell you something, Jerry. When somebody buys a property, a $50 million property, with a 70-30 sort of, let's call it leverage, with a $35 million loan and $50 million in equity, and that loan is variable, you're not buying a property.
Right.
You're buying a bond. You're not buying real estate. You're not buying that. So again, to the investors that are looking for risk, go to the bond market, go to the crypto market. Don't look for risk in real estate.
Right. So one of the ways you're explaining is you de-risk the financing part. Bottom line, that's a rule in every deal that PIA goes into.
Jerry, you de-risk everything, right? So if you take NOI is insurance. We know that insurance is hard. We have an insurance advisor that knows the insurance market that we said, hey, Mike, what do you think insurance is going to be a year from now? So it's somebody who understands the markets. It's not somebody, Jerry, trusted friend, he understands the market. You can call Jerry also, the whole thing. Taxes, you hire a tax consultant, right. And they also, okay?
Right, of course.
Maintenance, you bring engineers that will tell you, hey, this is the you being experts at every line item that you come down. Okay.
How did you deal with insurance that went up, 150% in 24 months?
I love what you do because you're creative. You actually, I use Jerry for everything that it's personal and some of the corporate, but it's creative. He understands how insurance companies think, right? And he goes like, hey, listen, you're insuring an apartment that has 1,100 square feet, but at 100 feet on balcony, that's not worth $80 per square foot. Right. So he's thinking a little bit out of the box, and he convinces the insurance companies that he's correct, and he's able to reduce the cost of insurance. But again, you have to work with experts.
If you want to increase your net operating income by lowering your insurance costs, look down below. There's a free PDF that will show you the secrets on how to do it. Can't do it yourself? Go down below. There's a link so you can schedule a meeting with one of my advisors. Remember, I solved overpriced insurance. That's right, for real estate, for myself and all our clients. If I can increase your net operating income by reducing your insurance costs, I just increased the value of your property. The best time to do it is always, but what if you're about to get a cash out refi? We can increase that by lowering insurance costs. What if you're about to sell your property on the market? Increase your net operating income by lowering insurance costs. You get a higher price. Go down below, reach out. I'd love to show you my solution.
Right. The funny thing is, I seen people buy a fourplex, and you know where they buy the insurance? They call the same guy who sells them the car insurance.
No, of course. Right? No, I get it. 100%.
No, Jerry, the most important thing here, when you buy a property, it's not the expenses. It's the income side. It's how do you forecast rent for 5 years?
Or future income side, I was going to say. Correct.
So you underwrite the economy. And how do you underwrite the economy? Shoe leather. Yes. You walk, you talk, you call the bankers, you have meetings with the bankers, you call the Chamber of Commerce. You have to have meetings with them, right? You do deep research. Okay, we underwrite the risk of the municipal bond of every place that we buy property with. For people look at me like, are you crazy? I never heard that one. I'm like, why? It's logical. Why will you buy a property in a city that is going bankrupt? Right? You try to talk to, like, if there's a big factory, like call it a Ford factory, right? You go and read the Ford, filings, and you talk about that factory and the productivity of that factory, so forth and so on, right? There's a lot of things that happens in the. So the first thing you have to make sure is, are the jobs and the economy going to be there?
Jobs, demand,
and then you go, is that factory that gives you 20% of people come here going to be there? Right.
So with that being said, are you targeting any other areas for high growth, or where
we got out of South Florida? I think South Florida is very frothy.
Okay.
We are basically in secondary and tertiary markets in the Southeast, and we're starting to look at Texas.
What's your main reason?
Huh?
What's the main reason to look at those markets besides South Florida being frothy? Migration. So demographics versus economics.
Jerry, real estate is not a game of bricks. It's a game of demographics.
I love it.
Right?
I agree. Right? Migratory patterns of people.
Migratory patterns. Where do people go to? Where they have jobs. Where do the jobs go? Where people go to.
Supply and demand.
Right? So one of the things that we learned, for example, we have a property in Pensacola. It's a military market. A lot of people migrate to Pensacola because when they retire in their military, they have a very good VA hospital. So retired military tend to move to places where they have good VA hospitals. Apart from Pensacola is beautiful and, the nicest beaches and so forth and so on, right? So my point is, I think that the biggest mistake people do when they're underwriting real estate is they look too much at the property and they don't look too much around, right? I will tell you the two biggest mistakes that I see.
I love that, Danny. I don't even have to ask you the questions because you're already saying the secrets. So go ahead. The biggest mistake.
The two biggest mistakes that people do when they invest in real estate. One, they don't ask about the capital stack or the risk. They don't talk. People don't understand what an IRR is. You can go to Wharton. They'll define what an IRR is. You give the same case to two different professors, they'll come with a different IRR. It's a lot of art to it because there's a lot of risk. So the IRR can change based on your capital stack. Are you taking variable debt? You're not taking variable debt. Are you assuming a second mortgage in year 3, so forth and so on? How quickly are you growing your rents? Blah, 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 blah. I can change my IRR by changing the growth rate on rent. Instead of putting 3.00, I can put 3.05 and nobody will notice.
I love the comment that you made. People are too focused on the piece of property and not what's around it, right? Yes. The shoe leather, the economy, are the people moving, the jobs. I love it. Okay, so today you
and the second biggest mistake, Jerry.
Yeah, go ahead.
People don't underwrite the GPs. You know how many times I sat down? Listen, we raised
general partners, right?
Sat down close to 100. Raised close to $100 million for this time around. How many people ask me about my family? What do you do? What do you think about the world? What do you think about risk?
So what you're saying is they don't underwrite the general partner that you're investing with. So they don't know who they are. They're looking at the numbers versus the person in the operator.
But the numbers are a reflection of that general partner. So if you're interviewing somebody, don't worry about it. Yeah, no, everything's going to work. And it's a happy.
Bernie Madoff. That's Madoff, right? His numbers look great. Right. Understood. Yeah.
There you go. How transparent they are. What's their background, right? Is it one person? Listen, I know people who run a one-man show in a multifamily acquisition, and I know somebody who worked for them, and they'll be like, I like that property. Why? Because I liked it. My gut told me, buy it. And here we're 3 partners. Each one's different than the other. For us to buy a property, the moon, the sun, and the stars have to align, right? It's like when I was driving my daughters to school. You know what? To have 3 women happy in the car at the same time? It's like it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Okay?
Right.
And in here, I'm going to call it a miracle. I'm calling it because when we buy a property, all of our company, 100% of our company needs to have a vote. Okay? Right. The CFO, who doesn't know much about real estate, great CFO, has to have a vote. The analyst has a vote. And if somebody says no, it's done. Obviously, they have to say no for a reason, and
Right, of course, but it's no. Right,
but no is no.
Tremendous.
So we underwrite 400 or 500 properties per year to buy 1, 2 maybe, and that's a lot of data, right? That we get, and so sometimes the easy part is, hey, why is it that we don't like this property? Well, remember the other property that went on the road, they were asking, I don't know, $160,000 per unit, and this one's asking $190,000, and this one's worse than the other one. So it doesn't make any sense. Boom, done. We're building AI to do that. We're connecting with a bunch of data operators to do that, because we have to become not only smarter at what we do, but we have to take advantage of what is coming.
So much learning from you, Danny. Every little point. I'm looking forward to the highlights of this video. That's 100%. All right, so Danny, let's move into your new startup, right? So Danny Kattan, basically, the way I see it, has created his own asset class. It started as, I think, a tech project, then a passion project, and now it's got legs and revenue. So tell us, what's the new project?
Well, it's not a new.
It's a business.
6 years.
Yeah, 6-year project.
Believe it or not, Jerry, you're a great part of why this project happened, because by having my real estate forum, I felt that I had enough support and naysayers that I can actually launch a company and feel, tranquil that I had people that had my back. Okay, but we talked about faith and God and the entrepreneur, right? Remember, I think I posted about the entrepreneur a while back about, having faith and believe in the whole thing. And we'll read it again. At the end, I like to post it again. But anyway, when I was buying houses, and I walked into 6,000 homes in South Florida, and I started in 08, 09. So my first daughter was born in 07, and my second daughter was born in 09. Okay. When you walk into a house that it's been foreclosed and evicted, and you have a house that basically has, you walked in and there's suddenly you see the pink room or the little blue room, hits you hard. I don't care, at least you and I, we have a heart, that there's a human problem, a human issue behind that. And somehow my mind and my heart and my soul, my mother was a social worker. So when we were growing up in Colombia, we had a lot of exposure to, the underprivileged class. And, we did, we interacted, we helped as much. And so I think I grew up with a kind heart. Okay. And so that heart gets affected. And as an entrepreneur, what happens when you see a problem?
You want to fix it.
There you go.
Or an opportunity, right.
There you go. But what happened at that moment, I'm buying houses, chop, 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 right? I have to go see another one. Okay, no time for this shit.
Right.
So I think that when I look back at it, I think that God, is trying to guide you to the path. It's like, push you in the right direction, right? So a couple of years later, I think it was 2013, 14, I got a call from one of my property managers. Says, Danny, are you in the neighborhood? Yes, can you show this house? And I showed that house to a gentleman that says, Danny, I'm going to rent this house, but you look, that house in that corner, it used to be mine. I got foreclosed because I called the bank and said, listen, are you $200,000? You're selling houses here for 60, 70. Why don't you, reduce the cost for me or let me pay less mortgage? I'll pay it to you. And the bank said, no, you have to be in foreclosure, for us to talk to you about short sales and all that crap. And I said, yeah, but I want to stay in my house. I don't want to give it to it. No, you cannot do that. And at that time, by the way, it was illegal if you did a short sale to stay in your home.
It was illegal.
Well, okay. Illegal from the point of view of the document.
Understood. The mortgage document. Okay.
The short sale document. You were mandated to leave the home.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
You had to leave the house on a short sale.
Yes. I'll tell you a story about a house. Let me finish this. I'll tell you a story. So anyway, I had that, and I felt like, there's an issue here. There's an opportunity. But again, next house, go, blah, 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 blah. So 2018, we're selling this to the portfolio to Cerberus. I'm in front of a big spreadsheet trying to create data for them and, to really understand, what we did to each house and all the data. And then you realize, holy crap, we spend so much time and money in vacancy and vacancy and turnovers and bad debt and rental commissions. Why people don't treat the home as their own? And that's when the famous light bulb came up.
The aha
moment. I'm like, wait,
right.
Because it's not their own. And then, the devil and the angel in one side, right? So you got the good entrepreneur and the bad entrepreneur. So I'm like, well, if it's not their own, how do you make it their own? It's like, oh, it's a leaseback. And then it's like, yeah, idiot. But the reason there's no residential leasebacks is because it must be illegal. It's such an easy solution to this huge problem that society has.
Right.
I'm sure it's illegal. And then you research about it, you realize, no, it's not.
It's not illegal.
So I went to my partners, Jimmy and Sol, and I couldn't go to them and say, I have this idea, and I have to create a business plan and the whole thing. And I, created a business plan, showed it to them. I said, I don't think it's going to work, but, you're free to do it by yourself. And that's when I started, 2019. And I said, sell to rent. And I just throw the number. So it's a residential leaseback. Now, one thing I knew for it was clear to me. I didn't want to buy the house. I didn't want to create a platform to buy homes.
Right. Explain in layman's terms what a residential leaseback is.
You sell your house, you cash out, and you rent it back.
Right. And that's part of the contract and part of the deal.
It's part of the contract, it's part of the deal. It will not happen if it doesn't happen.
And the goal is for that person to pay either less on the lease or similar to the mortgage?
Not necessarily. The goal is for that person to cash out the equity that they have.
And stay in their own house.
And stay on their own house.
So
So
the payments are the biggest trigger for people, right?
yes, but
Yeah.
here's the problem, right? So
Also, if you want to increase your net operating income by lowering your insurance costs, look down below. There's a free PDF that will show you the secrets on how to do it. Can't do it yourself? Go down below. There's a link so you can schedule a meeting with one of my advisors. Remember, I solved overpriced insurance. That's right, for real estate, for myself and all our clients. If I can increase your net operating income by reducing your insurance costs, I just increased the value of your property. The best time to do it is always, but what if you're about to get a cash out refi? We can increase that by lowering insurance costs. What if you're about to sell your property on the market? Increase your net operating income by lowering insurance costs. You get a higher price. Go down below, reach out. I'd love to show you my solution.
the problem is that a lot of people is like, oh, but if I'm gonna rent my house, I'm gonna pay less. I have to pay less than I'm paying in a mortgage. But if you're paying a mortgage of $150,000 and you're selling your house for $500,000, you're gonna pay less. So one of the first kind of like, issues we have in sell to rent is we have to tell people, well, if you want to sell your house, cash out and stay as a renter because you're getting divorced and you want to stay in the same neighborhood, right? Well, market rent here is $2,000, and sorry for you if you're paying $1,000, right? But that's the market rent here. Again, I don't set the market rent; it's the market that set the market rent.
Understood.
But then there's another layer on that, Jerry, which is a lot of people sometimes live beyond their means. So they're paying $1,000 in mortgages, but they're paying $1,500 in interest rates on their credit cards. So the all-inclusive payment. Oh, by the way, yeah, you're paying $1,000 in a mortgage, but your roof, changing your roof in 5 years is going to cost you $20,000, which means that you have to make a reserve for that in $300-400 per month, and then all the maintenance and the taxes and the insurance. So at the end, a lot of people are in this make believe that they're paying less in a mortgage than renting, when I can tell you that if you take your money and you pay all the debts, credit card debt is at 30%.
Right.
30% interest rate.
Interest rates. Yep. No, I understand.
Right. So if you owe $10,000 in a credit card, you're paying $250 just in interest every month.
No, I understand. 100%. So sell to rent. What's the website?
Sell-to-rent.com.
.com. Okay.
And if you're an investor, by the way, the best thing that you can do is buy a house that has a tenant that used to be the homeowner that tells you, I want to stay here for the next 10 years.
Right. Of course. Why? Because they take care of the house?
Of course.
They still treat it as their own?
And not only that, they're not going to leave.
They're not going to leave.
So we did a study. We used the data of a very large REIT. Okay. It was 20,000 homes that they gave us data for. What is the reason that after the first year, you left your house? And most of the reasons had to do with the fact that they didn't know the house before. Like, I don't like the neighborhood. I don't like the neighbor. I don't like the school. Right? The train drives by, so forth and so on. Right? So if you have somebody who's been living for at least 5 years, and they said, I'm going to live here for another 5, So I'm going to publish it in about a month or so, a paper that talks about how you can create extraordinary returns by investing in homes that have, tenants that used to own the house and they want to stay there for at least 10 years.
Got it. Right? Or really people who've stayed in a place over 5 or something of that nature.
What we did is we built a technology platform where people come to us and say, I want to sell my house. And using technology, we find for them an investor, from the data.
So it's a platform today. So they find people that want to stay in their house, but for some reason or another, they need the equity out of the house or cash out. Or for example, someone going through a divorce, right?
Jerry, there's 700,000 divorces every year in the United States.
Okay.
The data on how many people own houses that are divorced, that are getting divorced, it's hard to come by, but assume just a 60%, that's 400,000 people get divorced every year. Okay.
Right. And a lot of times,
and how many
sold during a divorce?
Right. And how many of those are we had people cry on the phone. So getting back to to the entrepreneurial side, right? So in 2019, I'm thinking this is a great idea. It's going to help the world and so forth and so on. And then the entrepreneurial roller coaster comes in, right? The best day and the worst day in your life. You got COVID. COVID forced us to think this as a technology instead of selling to the funds. We're going to find people through data. And then, I put in money myself. I put $1 million of my own money to execute this idea. And only when it was ready, I went out and started looking for people. Thankfully, I found my partner, Alex, which Jerry knows. And Alex came from being like, this is the stupidest idea in the world. Like, do I want to work with you? Right? You have to be crazy to work with me, but, I guess it takes two. And then we raised money from people in the industry. And it's been hard. It's been hard because in the meantime, you see the people in Silicon Valley raising tens of millions of dollars, right? And you're basically trying to do the right thing, do it. You heard me say this many times, 9 pregnant women do not make a baby in 1 month, okay? 9 pregnant women do not make a baby in 1 month. And I think that the failure of entrepreneurship is when it gets contaminated by too much money.
Too much money.
Yes. You're giving too much money and you have to go spend it and you don't have... It's like if I tell you go build a tall building and you don't have time to do a great foundation.
Understood. You got to deploy the capital. You're more focused on the investors, the return.
Yeah, it's like valuation. We're focused here on a mission. And so 3-4 years ago, I got to the conclusion that my mission, I was hand-selected by the Almighty. And I'm not, right? As an entrepreneur, to go solve a problem for people that are having issues, divorce, retirement, debt. Because unless you're truly convinced of what you're doing and the reason you're doing it for, entrepreneurship is very hard. For me, it's not about the money, it's about the people we can help.
100%.
And this is where we get the energy to keep on going forward.
What's the purpose of a business, Danny?
The purpose of the business is to make residential leaseback a main alternative, selling your house. And I believe that when people realize that this is an alternative, it will change their lives. How many people are trapped in their house because they cannot go anywhere? They have equity that they cannot deploy to do a business. We had people that came to us that released equity and started a business. We had people that came to us and said, thank God that you're there for us because now I can get divorced. I wasn't getting divorced because if I got divorced, where do I take my kids?
Correct.
Like this is not a solution.
I can share you my personal story with that, where when my first wife, when I got married with my 2 sons, we eventually led in a divorce. I gave her the house because we wanted to cohabitate. At the end of the day, she said, I can't afford the house. Right. And we had equity. We lived on the water. Looking back, it's worth millions of dollars more. But so I have a personal experience. So in a nutshell, your ideal client is that, right? Because that family can actually stay in the house that they've been in 10 years, whether it's the father with the kids or the mother with the kids, it doesn't matter. But they can stay because of the equity in the house.
Well, if you're talking divorce, if you're talking people who are drowning in debt, it's the people who are drowning in debt. And there's also a convenience person, right? It says, oh, wait, you mean to tell me I can sell my house, cash out, start a business and stay here? Sure, why not?
Right. So when I asked you the purpose of the business, what's the purpose? I'm curious how you're going to answer. What's the purpose of any business?
I think that if your business doesn't affect society positively, you have no purpose.
I was asked that question last week. I said, your business, same answer, Danny. The purpose of a business is to help people.
Yes.
Period. End of story. Most people don't say that. It's to make money, and they don't get it, what we get, right? So, and what this gentleman also said to me was the purpose of the business, and my answer was to help people, and you get paid directly proportionate to the problem that you solve for humanity in return. I liked that answer.
I don't know because if that was the answer, then teachers should get paid way, way, way much more than they're getting paid.
Okay.
Right? I think that there's a section.
Private schools, not public.
Still.
I get it.
Still, right? I mean,
yeah.
By default, a plumber makes more per hour than a teacher.
This is true.
Right?
True. 100%.
So we care more about our shit than our, the brains that are of our kids. I think that that correctly said it. It's not the purpose of a profession, but of a business. Because being an entrepreneur is asymmetrical. You know, suicide rates among entrepreneurs are very high, and this is one of the reasons EO was created, right?
Right.
It's asymmetrical. We don't have unemployment benefits. We don't have, a cushion. We fuck up, you go to bankruptcy. And, it's not like, and it stays there for you, right? It's like, there's two types of bankruptcy. You know what? I was somebody who's living beyond my means and having a job, and I got into a bankruptcy, versus I was an entrepreneur, got into bankruptcy, right? Mm-hmm. It's asymmetrical in the sense that you can have the worst day and the best day in the same hour. It's depressive. But unless you're doing it for a reason, for a purpose, it's very hard to do.
Right. 100%.
And by the way, it's very hard to do at my age, at your age, man. At 23, shit, you get into a garage, you eat pizza, right? Who cares? We have families, we have friends, we have, we're not in the best shape of all, right? So that's why entrepreneurship, for the guys in Silicon Valley and, garage, 25, amazing. Go try to do entrepreneurship when you're 50.
Right. When I was on Wall Street, 21, right out of school, right, I had a sign on me that said, the one with the most toys wins. My purpose was money. In 7 years, I lost everything.
Yes.
Okay?
No, you didn't lose everything.
I learned that lesson. Well, I got an education.
You didn't lose everything. You gained a lot.
I gained a big education.
You lost everything that you thought that was important.
Right. Exactly. I didn't know any better. And by the way, I had a condo on Upper East Side with some equity. And if I didn't have that I bought along the way, I was started over with zero in Miami.
I think that most entrepreneurs have that come to Jesus moment where you're like, oh, okay, this is why I was here. This is why I was in this moment, right?
I get it. Dan, I got two final questions for you, and then one thing. You got a lot going on, right? So how do you tell? Because Danny is everywhere, multiple businesses, multiple things, but he's real estate focused. How do you tell the difference between, opportunity versus distraction? How do you know the difference?
I'm ADD, man. That's the wrong person to ask. For me, everything's an opportunity, right? Like, if I had 20 people, if I was able to manage people well, okay, then I'll have 20 people, and I walk into an office and it's okay, you're the idea of Monday, you're the idea of 3:00, and I'll be like, okay, you have to implement that idea. At some point, I'm gonna have enough money, enough time, so I can just basically create this incubator to go generate ideas that will change the world. Okay,
right?
Not to generate money, change the world. By the way,
there's your purpose.
But I think it's very important, right? I think so. So it's very hard because as an entrepreneur, you wanna solve problems and help people, and then you have the family, and you always have the conversation with the wife. It's like you have so much time for everybody, but not for us.
Right.
Right. That's hard.
Vulnerable.
It's vulnerable. And it's hard, and I think that comes with at the end you valuing your time and being very upfront and honest. So I'm very active in our community. I'm in the planning and zoning board of a city. On the board of a temple, and any help that people need it from me. They post something, I try to help, because I realize that I crave knowledge, and knowledge comes by helping people. Knowledge does not come from teachers or from reading books. That's the easy way, right? It's like you want to help society and you write a check and you donate. That's the easy way. That's not helping society, right? You want to help society, put hours. Go in a kitchen soup and, help people. Look, have contact.
Right.
Right?
But you do it on a bigger scale.
I know people who are like philanthropists. Great. But they're not there. They're just write checks and then go to dinners. Have they sat down with the rabbi or the priest and say, hey, how can I help? I'll give you 3 hours of my time. Right. How can I help you?
Or create sell to rent.
Or create an insurance company. Or create an insurance company that wants to help, investors.
Real estate investors, people.
Right?
This this leads me to my last question for you, right? Because I know Danny Kattan as a giver, right? I know Danny Kattan will go out of his way to help almost anybody, from the family that just got foreclosed on all the way to mentor somebody who's a developer and you don't even think it's a good idea. So Danny Kattan says yes a lot. So there's an old saying, Danny.
I
People
know.
who say yes a lot eventually let you down because they say yes too many times. What do you
I
think about that?
I will probably agree. I will probably agree, but
You never let me down or
I
anybody else
rather
that knows you.
I rather err on the side of trying to help people and letting them down than not helping them at all. Because the contrary of that is people say no. And if I know, say no to everything, because that's being selfish. So the question is, we talk about luck and we talk about being in the right time. So when you help people, how many times by helping people you put yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, this is the reason why I helped this person, right?
I love help.
Uh,
I get it.
I, I always have this issue of, when's enough? How do you help somebody until what point?
Right.
And sometimes I believe that the people we end up helping is the people that we know are going to turn around and help others.
No, I agree.
Right? It's like we don't select the people we help. We end up like, at the end you have to help 3 or 4 people and have one person you can help. Somehow your gut or your divine intervention pushes you to help the person that you know will take that help and will help others. And that's how we make the better world.
Exactly.
Right? I do believe,
Yeah,
Jerry.
I love it.
I do believe, right? And uh, I know people who are extremely religious, Jewish religious, they keep the Shabbat. And I asked some of them, you're driving in a car, right? You have 3 minutes to get home and 3 minutes and your home's away, 3 minutes. And there's an old lady or a blind man crossing the road that obviously needs help. Do you stop? And most people will tell you, no, because Shabbat is very important, blah, blah, blah. And in my mind, I'm thinking, so you think that that blind person 3 minutes from, stopping you in your regular day to day was
Right.
there by
To
chance?
get home by sunset. Right.
Was there by chance? Then maybe God put that in front of you to remind you that there's more important things that certain other things. And I'm not saying I'm criticizing religious people or not. I'm just saying that sometimes we're too busy doing our shit and the Almighty puts situations in front of us that requires us to stop and do something for it. And sometimes we ignore them. We ignore those situations. I believe that's an opportunity. It's there for a reason.
It's there for a reason.
And let's say that nothing happens. You feel good. You help somebody. Great.
No. Listen, Danny, the reason that we're on here, right, is because one of my visions, and you're helping me, is because this platform today or this phone today allows you to help one to many. And that's exactly why we're doing this today. Whether we're helping real estate investors, entrepreneurs, people, foreclosures, everything that you said today, the value is tremendous, right? And that's the beauty of a scalable impact like sell to rent, right? So I believe certain people like ourselves, we have, well, tooting my horn or yours, is we have the ability, God gave us a gift, and that gift is to impact the many, right? I mean, it's okay to impact one person on the corner, but it's also I'm thinking scalable. And I learned that when I did the Bahamas bailout and I was delivering waters,
Sure.
right? And I did that whole thing. We got 1,200 people evacuated because I knew people, that a CEO of a cruise ship company, and you knew this guy and I knew this guy. A year later, so I was literally carrying water bottles, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, okay, this is what I should be doing. A year or two later, I got a call from an EO member in Colombia when a Category 5 hit Providencia, right?
Providence. Yeah.
Right. And he was an EO member with the vice president of Colombia on the phone. They've never had a Category 5. And they go, Jerry Katz, you were the ex-president of Entrepreneurs Organization. We heard that you helped 1,200 people on an island of the Bahamas. Now I'm like, my God. In 20 minutes, I explained to them what an NGO is, who to reach out to, who can handle logistics. It's an island. They need a barge. And I said, this is impact, right?
Yeah.
Help overnight.
But Jerry,
Where
let me
3
finish.
years ago, I'm delivering water bottles. I was like, what's going on here?
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me just tie it up. So as you know, we have a hard
Yep.
money lending platform, and now we have a PIA Capital, which is an advisory kind of mortgage type of broker.
Mhm.
And since I reached out to people and said, this is what I'm doing, a bunch of people basically reach out and says, oh, great. Because I know you'll care about what I'm looking for. Like sometimes people take these mortgages. Like I know you care about the insurance of people. Like you take it personally,
That's right.
right?
You got to.
And then some mortgage brokers are like, oh, just one more. For me, it's about, like I tell people, I want to help you understand what you're doing, provide you with a solution. But my point is people reach out to me. Right. And so and to you, because we're out there, we're helping. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, listen. You got a busy day, so do I. And this has been amazing. So at the end of the day, we just talked about helping everybody else.
Yeah.
So this show is going to get picked up by quite a few people. It'll be split up. How can Real Estate Profit Boost and this channel help Danny Kattan, his endeavors? How do people reach out to you? You use this to allow us to give you some help, Danny. It's okay. It's not even the plug. Win-win situations, right?
So,
because first of all, I invest with Danny Kattan, right? Because he's a man of integrity. You heard it here. This is real, right? So the point is I'm a big LP with a lot of my clients. Why? Because I get to see how they do business in insurance and this, and I engage them. So there's so many things that this platform, my goal is to help people like Danny and other people. There was so much knowledge here, right? Just to listen to this for a couple hours, my God, it changes your whole vision. So Danny, how can we help you?
So if you are a real estate investor and you want to have a good investment opportunity in multifamily, reach out to me, Danny at PIA Residential. I'm sure Jerry's going to post that.
It'll all be down below in the description.
We have a multifamily fund that is doing very well, or it's doing well, I will say. I mean, very hard to do very well these days with the insurance prices and whole thing. But you know what?
Wait, did Danny just say insurance is too high? Wait a minute. Doesn't he know that Premier Protection and me, we solved that problem? Shh. I'll tell him at the end of the podcast. If you want to know how to lower your insurance, click below. Shh.
But you know what? The most important thing is it's that it's a safe investment vehicle. We run extremely professional. Soon we're gonna be in the major platforms in Fidelity and Schwab and Pershing. So you can go to your RIA and it says, I want to invest in the PIA Residential Fund. We also do a hard money lending. And so if you need hard money or you need a loan, residential, commercial, feel free to reach out to us. We have a PIA lending fund. So if you want to invest in hard money, reach out to us. And most important, sell to rent. Sell to rent, I think it will change the world. It will change the world for many. Spread the word. Tell your friends that, if they ever face a situation where they want to sell your house, cash out, and stay as a renter, they can reach out to us. And if you like the idea and want to invest, reach out.
Awesome. You're the man. So selltorent.com. What's the PIA website?
PIAresidential.com. PIAresidential.com.
Right. And basically he said if you're an investor, or you can use the business side, right? On sell to rent. He's here, both sides, including lending. They have a lending fund, right? I've done videos on zero down lending. Danny's the guy that, if you find a property that's worth $500,000 and you're buying it for 300,000, zero down real estate, that's what we're talking about. I have a little video on that. So, wow. I told you, Danny. I told you this would be a great thing.
It's amazing.
Right. No, you're a rock star. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, Danny, thank you.
Thank you for
Reach
having
out to Danny, Pia Residential, selltherent.com. I hope you learned a lot, and you're a rock star, man. I love you. I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Danny.
Thank you, Jerry. Bye.
Boom. That's Real Estate Profit Boost with Jerry Katz CEO all over the web. We created this community right here to help you scale in the world of commercial real estate. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're a seasoned syndicator or an institution. We will be interviewing the titans of real estate right here that share all their successes, their strategies, their execution, more importantly, and their biggest failures. Why? So you don't have to. So what you need to do is subscribe below. Share this with a friend, comment, and let's create a community of learning and growing from the biggest titans in real estate right here on Real Estate Profit Boost.